What if your midlife crisis is not a crisis at all, but the greatest awakening of your life? There are 5 patterns of fear and confusion that can make you feel as though you are experiencing an unnecessary crisis. But when you know what they are and you move through them, you can actually shift to clarity, confidence, and excitement. Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard. I went from being a lawyer and partner at one of the largest firms in America to becoming an online personality and successful entrepreneur. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your health and personal life. So how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you chase joy while achieving success? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. Welcome back to Hustle and Flow. I am your host, Heather Hubbard, and we are on episode 247, Reclaiming Your Identity. That's right. Whether you are in a quarter life crisis, a midlife crisis, a third quarter crisis, my whole life I had only heard about a midlife crisis, and then the quarter life crisis came along. They started talking about that, and now I'm hearing more and more about the third quarter life crisis. And let's just say that this actually has nothing to do with age. We keep saying that it does, but I think that maybe that's just entire industries. It's like a cottage industry that is making a lot of money off of people who are feeling as though they are not happy in their lives and they need to make a change. I also help in these areas, but I don't know that it's actually a crisis, and I certainly don't know that it's actually connected to your age. If you can have a crisis at 20, 25, 40, 50, 60, 75, 80, then I really don't think it's your age. Okay. So let's just go ahead and put that out there. And let's talk about reframing it so that you can maybe start to see that it's just your soul crying out saying, this ain't it. And let's pivot. Let's transition. Let's do something new and different. Let's change what's not working so that we can have more peace and joy in this thing called life. I suspect that this is something that has always gone on, but I do think that the longer we live, our life expectancies continue to get longer and longer. The more we start to question, is this what we want for any particular season of our life? You know, when you think back to why people had so many children, often it was because they didn't have birth control. There wasn't really a discussion of family planning, but more importantly, a lot of children died. And you actually needed children to help clean and take care of the other kids. And if you had a farm to farm, if you had a business to work. And so I think we treated families a lot differently. In many ways, it was about survival and there was less attachment. So I suspect that when your life expectancy was a lot shorter and you may or may not have actually had running water and electricity, and you're having all of these children, they're not all going to live. You're, spitting out so many babies that you've got some that are grown and having their own babies while you're still having babies. It was a very, very different life. And I don't know that people had these moments of where they were like, what am I doing? And maybe they did, but there probably wasn't much they could do about it. There are so many reasons why our world right now is absolute wackadoo. And that's a really nice way of putting it. But we also live in a time where we have more freedom and more choices and more simple everyday luxuries. Like the concept of having running water, electricity, heat, air. I mean, even the richest, wealthiest, most powerful kings and queens did not have access to this stuff until just recently. So we have so many luxuries and conveniences that it makes us yearn for more. We have the opportunity. So many of us have gone and gotten educated, and that has given us the opportunity to move with cars, with planes, with our highway systems, with trains, not so much in the United States, but with trains. It has allowed us to easily flow and move from city to city. It's not as big of a deal to pick up and move. You can always visit your family. This has really only been around, all of these things, for 100 years. And so I think this is part of what has caused what we are calling these, midlife crisis, quarter life crisis, or third quarter life crisis. We have access to more self-help than we ever had before. Used to, I think they used to read about stories to escape. And now we're like, how can I improve my life? Which is wonderful. But when we try to improve our lives, it does also make us think and wonder, is this it? Is this what I want? We have much longer life expectancies, and relationships, I think, in some ways might be more meaningful. Maybe we're not spending the same amount of time. I mean, I know they talk so much about how we're disconnected, we're isolated, and yet, even when I think back to like my grandparents or the way they talk about their great grandparents, the love and nurturing was not there. That was not their experience because they were surviving in the situation in which they were given, especially if they were growing up with World War I or World War II, the Great Depression. There were so many things that impacted them and influenced them. So when we start to look at, well, what has impacted us? What has influenced us? Well, if we just look at the last 10 years, because I feel like lots of people have been in crisis over the last 10 years, we have seen this fringe right wing political uprising, not just in the United States, but throughout the world. And that has really challenged a lot of our beliefs and our improvements and just advancements related to rights for women, the LGBTQ community, for people of color. And now that that's all being chipped away at, it's being eroded, it is being attacked. It has created a lot of stress and anxiety and fear and discord. So we're not feeling as stable and secure as we were the previous 10 years. We were, for the most part, as a collective, it seemed as though we could get along, even if we did not share the same political beliefs. And there just did not seem to be the same divisiveness as there is now. Social media has come to light, which allows us to see what other people are doing in their lives, albeit a filtered view of their lives. So you see people traveling, you see people doing other things, and you're influenced by that. You're like, I want that. You may see me working from home and you're like, oh my God, I want that. So we have access to more stress and we have access to more possibility. Add on to that the pandemic, and it completely turned everything on its head. And from the economy with inflation to the way we talk about health care in America, with the way that we talk about government agencies, the amount of distrust with so many of our institutions that used to not be questioned that much. Like, there is just so much questioning that has been going on. There was the great resignation. There was supply chain issues. There has just been so much in flux, and we have yet to fully recover from it. It was 5 years ago, and we're actually still very much dealing with the consequences. Our economy has not bounced back, And there are threats of tariffs and threats of deportation. Like the amount of just complete and utter chaos, which is what Trump wants, I think has just caused all of us to say, well, what are we even doing? And that includes in our lives. What are we doing as a country? What are we doing as a people? What are we doing individually? And suddenly, workplace cultures, relationships with family, it can feel even more difficult now than it was 5, 10 years ago, because we tend to be like just on different planets. And so it's just like, what do I do with this? And so I think that that's why we are seeing so many people in an identity crisis at the moment, because there's just so much influx. We all know life is short. And we're just like, do I want to keep going along the path I've always gone on? Do I want to keep with my conditioning and my industry? Or do I want to say, you know what? I'm going to opt out of whatever this is and do something else. Although, for many people, they're like, but I don't know what I'm opting into. Like, I know what I want to opt out of, but I don't know what I want to opt into. So, what do you do with that? And it's when you're in this place of, I'm not happy, I'm stressed out, I'm anxious, I am angry, I am frustrated, I am overwhelmed, things aren't working, the economy is, I can't wrap my head around it, my expenses keep going up. I keep worrying about, is the economy going to bounce back? If I'm in business, how is my business going to survive? How long will this last? Are we going in a recession? There's just so much that can swirl in your mind, and you just don't know. You're like, I don't know what the solution is. So today I want to break down for you the 5 things that's going to keep you in that stuck space, spinning your wheels, or talking about making a change but never doing anything about it. It's going to keep you from constantly complaining about how much you are dissatisfied with a relationship or a family member or a career, and actually give you a path to move with clarity and confidence. So there are 3 types of fear that show up that really makes you think this is a crisis situation. And it makes you think this is not an awakening. This is not a beautiful transition or journey, because that voice inside of you that is telling you something needs to change scares the shit out of you because of these 3 reasons. Number 1, if I leave my spouse, if I quit my job, if I change jobs, if I start a business, like whatever it is that you're wanting to do, I may lose the security that I have, the security that I've built. So the people who listen to my podcast are high achievers. You worked so hard to get where you are. You worked so hard to build this life and career that in many ways feels secure. It may not feel satisfying. It may feel soul sucking, but it probably feels secure. You probably have a decent salary. You probably have decent benefits. You probably have decent flexibility. If we're talking about relationships, it's, you've probably, you either share a home, or you share finances, or you share the burdens within the home. There's routines. There is security. There is stability. And even if those things feel like something that are bringing you down, there is a lot of fear about walking away, or even if you stay, changing things up, having difficult conversations. And it's all around this fear of security. So many of us think that it was so hard to do it the first time. We don't want to start over. Like, we don't want to do that again. We also think that maybe we could only do it one time. Like we're a one hit wonder. There is no guarantee that it would be successful again. Like, would another relationship even be better? Would another job be better? The grass is always greener on the other side. And so we have this fear and we tell ourselves, you are secure and stable. Just get your shit together and be happy. Like, just be okay. The problem is your soul is not like your mind might be persuaded by that, but your heart and soul is not. Your heart and soul is not. Your heart and soul is the 7-year-old inside of you, truly, that just wants to be happy and free. Like they still, your heart and soul, they still have dreams for you and beliefs for you about what your life can still be. And so they're not going to be happy with, well, we've got security and stability, because that's the very logical, rational, adult, high achieving mental voice that you are hearing. So that is the first one. The second fear is that you will lose respect or you will lose your reputation. I hear this all the time with lawyers or CEOs or others who have been doing things for a really long time. It's, well, what will people think? Especially as women, right? So it's like, I achieved this much. I am a leader in my field. If I walk away, if I say I want something different, then what message is that sending to others? And I worked so hard to build up this reputation at this company or in this industry or in this career that, like, I'm just really concerned that if I go do something different at another company or I change careers or I start a business, that I will lose that and I can't come back to that. We create all of these stories. Similarly, like with relationships or moves, like maybe you're wanting to move across the country. You're like, where I'd really like to be is by the ocean. But we have all of these reasons why we couldn't do that. And one fear might be, well, I'm going to be leaving one market and going into another market and no one knows me. I don't have a reputation there. I'm going to have to start over. I'm going to have to build things from scratch. And then leaving the community that I am leaving, it might be clients, it might be employees, colleagues, mentors, bosses, friends, family. Making any kind of change, we tell ourselves, well, this is going to let others down. And they may think less highly of me. They might be disappointed in me. They might talk about me. And I'm really worried about losing that respect and that reputation. And that's a really big factor. I think, especially for the midlife and the third quarter life, it may not be as big of a deal for the quarter life, but the longer you've been in a career or a relationship or in a city or anything, it just makes you feel as though you have more to lose if you walk away and you don't want to do something irrational. And then the third one is actually a little bit connected to the second one, but it is, you're afraid that you're going to lose relationships. You are afraid you're going to lose validation and approval. So they may still respect you. You may still have the same reputation, but the relationship is not as strong as it used to be. We all know that when we change jobs, we lose friendships or they're just not the same way they used to be. Things change. We hate change. Even when our heart and soul desires change, we hate it. And this also goes back to, what are people going to say about me? And we don't want people to think less of us. We don't want people to think poorly of us. Maybe we have aging parents. And it's like, well, what will my parents think if I move to another city? Or what will people who know my parents, knowing that they're aging, think of me if I move to another city? There's just so much there. And again, as high achievers, so much of our life and our achievement has been directly related to our deep desire and need for approval. And when we have gotten all of those gold stars and we have checked all the boxes and people have said, good girl, you're doing a great job, we don't want to be the person who no longer is getting those gold stars. We don't want to be the person who's being told bad girl, even if we are 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old women. And so just knowing that these are the fears that are coming up and being able to look at them from a neutral perspective and knowing that these are normal, like these are absolutely the fears that are going to come up for you, then it just gives you more freedom to work through them. So the two areas of confusion when it comes to any kind of crisis, life transition is, who am I and what do I want? Who am I and what do I want? Because you may know that you want to change, but you may also feel like you have no idea what kind of change you want. You're like, Heather, I'm not even really worried about my reputation or approval or stability because I don't even know what I would do. Like, I don't even know what that looks like. I have been on this path for so long that the concept of what would make me happier is beyond me. Like, I truly don't know. And so this is where confusion sets in. So you have fears that you're going to have to grapple with once you actually figure it out what it is that you want, probably. But there's also just general confusion of, I know what I don't want. I know what I don't want. I know this is not it. But what the hell do I actually want? And this is where you're like, I mean, I've totally probably lost touch with who I was as a child or who I was in high school or who I was in college, maybe even like it, when you were in law school or medical school or a master's program or just, young and in your 20s. Like that probably seems like a lifetime ago. And she probably wasn't afraid of things. She probably didn't overthink things, or even if she did, it was like in a different way. And she thought anything was possible. And she would be willing to get up and move. Like you probably went away for college or moved around for different cities and jobs, and it was fun and exciting. And now that might feel a little bit more terrifying because most of us have stopped to say, like, who am I? What do I want? Who am I going to become? Once we actually get the major, get the degree, get the career, and we've started down that path, we don't really ask ourselves again. Like the questioning stops. Similarly, with relationships, whether you're in romantic relationships, you have children, or let's say you've never been married or never had kids, you probably made that decision so long ago that you haven't really stopped to check in with, what do I want? Is this it? Is it something else? Am I allowed to dream? Like, who even am I? Do I have hobbies? Do I have interests beyond my career and my family? Like, who even am I? And then what do I want? Well, it's like, I don't know. And then we get stuck in our heads trying to figure out, well, what's even an available career? If that's like one of the things, where even could I move? I don't know where I would want to move. What job would make me happy? I don't even know. And then we get into well, what's possible, right? Like, again, we're going back to nothing is possible anymore. We're like, I have to have this relatable skill. I'm definitely not going back to school. What can I even do? I'm so high up. People aren't going to let me start new again, right? Like we're like, nothing's possible. I'm just stuck. Like I am just stuck. I don't even know what would work, but we're not even really giving ourselves permission to dream and explore and get curious about what we want because we're afraid that if we know what we want, either we can't have it or we can, but we're going to have to be poor or we're going to have to start over or we're going to have to, like, this is where we get really caught up. And this is where that fear and that confusion becomes a true crisis because we know we're not happy. We know we want something to change, but we don't know what it is. And we're afraid of what it looks like. So when we can identify these 5 things and spend time with these 5 things and explore these 5 things, knowing again that everyone else has the same thoughts and feelings, it gives you permission to actually work through it in a more open, curious, like even methodical way, as opposed to there are no answers I've got to get this perfect. What am I going to do? It just shifts things so that it can be more an experiment, more exciting, and less of I'm having a breakdown. So if this has been speaking to you and you're like, I mean, is Heather reading my journals? Then I want you to come to my masterclass. Okay. I'm doing a free live masterclass on Monday, June 16th. And it is called Why Successful Women Feel Lost and How to Find Your Way Back. Why Successful Women Feel Lost and How to Find Your Way Back. Now, if you're a man, you can also attend. I'm not going to kick you out, but it is specifically for women. So why are you even feeling this way in the first place? And how do you find your way back to yourself? How do you figure out who you are and what you want and find a way to be able to make those clear, confident, bold moves in a way that feels fun and uplifting as opposed to death-defying? So sign up for that. It's absolutely free. heatherjoyhubbard.com/masterclass. And I am making a big special announcement this afternoon, if you are listening the day that this is released. And if you are listening afterwards, you can still go watch the replay. It will be up through June 24th. So all you have to do if you want to watch that is go to heatherjoyhubbard.com/announcement. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you come to the masterclass. And we've got a lot of great content in store for you this month. June is all about joy in the journey. So if you are feeling like you are in a bit of a crisis, or you're just having some thoughts of confusion, or like, who am I? What do I want? Then go check out the masterclass. You're going to love the content this month, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, give the episode a like and leave a comment below so we can keep the conversation going. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future episode or announcement. Listening on Apple, Spotify, or another podcast app, you can watch the video and join in the after show conversation by visiting hustleandflowpodcast.com.